Hi, class. Today I want to talk about something that I've probably written on your papers already, and that is focus and purpose. What is focus? So we'll start there. Focus is the controlling idea, main point, or guiding principle of your writing. It's the thing on which every word, sentence, and paragraph of your essay should hang. So I used a picture of a bullseye for the background of this slideshow, and think you want to think about all your main points as being arrows that you're slamming into the center of that bullseye all the time. Anything that doesn't lead back to your main idea needs to be cut. If it's an arrow that's going to fly off to the side, get rid of it. We don't need it. Some tips to encourage focus. First, include a title. Titles always can help bring things together. Choose a single story to focus on. Don't try to tell every single story. There is an exception with that. If you want to tell every single story, you have to unite them with some kind of theme. Um, there is an exception about that, though. Um, if you tell multiple stories on the same theme, you don't want to scrimp out on details. You still want space for dialogue and exploding a moment. If you find yourself having to um, not do anything to develop your paper in terms of details, then you probably want to back off and stick with one. The second idea that we're going to talk about is the closely related concept of purpose. Purpose is the ultimate goal you have for your writing. It could be expression, exploration, entertainment, persuasion, explanation, evaluation, and analysis. And there's probably a lot more besides that I just couldn't think of. Some tips to encourage focus or for purpose. First of all, ask yourself, so what? Why does it matter? Um, Along those same lines, what will someone gain by reading this? What's your goal for communicating this story? Um, a moral or argument can help you get there, some sort of lesson that we want to take from it, or some sort of position you want to state. And finally, a title. Sometimes, if your paper just all it needs is a title to help make the point more clear. So, I have an example unfocused essay that we'll look at, and I'll show you what I do to try to bring it into greater focus. When I was a little kid, I was attacked by Rottweilers. I don't remember it, but it must have gotten deeply wedged into my psyche. I was afraid of dogs as a kid, and I'm still fairly wary of them. We lived in a tiny house in a sweet, tree filled neighborhood back then, and I remember always feeling nervous about our backyard neighbors. And I wonder if it had something to do with the dog attack. But I don't have any clear memories of particulars. I couldn't even draw a map of the neighborhood if I tried. I do remember that my mom would walk me sometimes, or walk me to school sometimes, and we'd pass a lot of fenced in barking dogs. The walks were worth it to me, but I always put my mom on the side closest to the dogs. Crestview Elementary was completely fenced in, and sometimes I remember what it was like to play in the yard at recess. I also remember when the teacher made us take a nap. I thought that was so dumb. One time, the teacher made me stop reading one of those Mercer Meyer little critter books to take a nap. I remember in that moment, just before she took the book away, I realized with a spark of recognition that the H was the only difference between were and where. As I lay on that red vinyl mat, I thought about that H until it was time to wake up. I feel like that memory is the cornerstone of my entire literary experience. Soon we moved into suburbia, almost in the country, where people didn't have fences and dogs were more likely to roam free. Plus, I had to start walking myself to school. I think that's why my mom decided to get me a dog of my own. His name was Ernie the Wonder Dog, and he's the best dog that ever lived. We found him at the pound. He had a low, mournful bark and floppy ears. His eyes didn't droop quite as much as a pure basset hound, but they had enough basset in them to make him always look a little sleepy. His body was long, squat, and round. He was colored white, black, and brown. When I saw him that first day, he seemed so sad and awkward and goofy that I didn't think he could ever hurt me. But we weren't immediate friends. I was still scared. I liked being around him, but only if my mom was there to hold the leash. But that finally all changed. It was snowing outside, and we were playing rough, throwing snowballs right at each other's heads and intentionally running our sleds into the evergreen trees. It was my turn to ram the tree. I got a running start and jumped into my sled. It flew down the hill faster than I had ever gone before. I screamed with joy and terror. When I slammed into the tree, the plastic sled made a fantastic crunching sound, and the wind was knocked out of me. I sat there, stunned for a moment. Ernie, who had been bounding around the yard in his galumphing way, stopped and came running towards me. At first, I was nervous having a dog come barreling towards me at full speed. But then he jumped on the sled with me and licked my face. He was making sure I was okay. You saved me, Ernie. Later, we got Ernie a friend named Pip, a cute little Scotty dog. They were the best of friends. No one will ever come close to Ernie, but I loved Pip because he was Ernie's friend. They are both buried in my mom's backyard under a redbud tree now. So there's some good stuff here. It's just lacks focus and purpose. It needs something to pull it together. So one thing that I need to do is to give it a title. It missed a title. It has the possible focus of dogs, but there's a lot of unrelated stuff that I can slash. In fact, I can get rid of the whole first page. And then I want to focus on a single story and add some flashbacks to create a greater sense of focus in not just theme, but also in the setting and timing and everything. We're not trying to tell everything about Ernie. So if you look at this, I've ended up slashing most of the first page. All of that is cut out. I found a good title idea in the text, which I highlighted, Ernie the Wonder Dog. That's a good title. This information about getting him from the pound, that's kind of like background exposition type information. And we can repurpose it as either a flashback or a flash forward. Same thing with the description of Ernie's friend Pip. The new starting place is that story about me in the snow with Ernie will begin in medias res instead of trying to cover everything and all the background beforehand. So if you look at the final version of this, and of course you can link to it, it's available on in the links attached to this file. If you look at this, I've actually cut it down to one page. Hopefully that one page is more interesting and exciting. And I'm not going to read it all out loud. You can go take a look at it and see what changes I made. But I hope that you find it helpful to see an example of me taking something that lacked focus and purpose and then did my best to bring that focus and purpose to it.